think are still coming unless the weather got them and held them back. So we'll kind of see what happens from there. Go ahead, Brad. You can flip that. Let's see. I know you haven't been here. You haven't been here. You haven't been here, and you haven't been here. So that's good. That's a good thing. So I'm gonna give you. Actually, you guys are gonna get to hear information tonight that others who have seen this have never seen before. Okay, or at least talked about it before. So the folks who didn't make it tonight are going to miss out but wanted to be here for this. But obviously, we're going to talk to you about the Ark of the Covenant tonight, and without any question or any doubt, the Ark of the Covenant is probably the most sought-after artifact of all time. And that's why there's so many movies about the Ark of the Covenant. We're just talking about the Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there's just so many different movies. King Solomon's Mines, and all of those movies that are based off of the Ark of the Covenant. But we're going to actually start off and talk to you about our journey first. Some of you know this, some of you don't. But for us, things for us actually got started here a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, and in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. But I want to kind of go back a little bit and kind of reframe, or go back over some of the ideas and things that kind of set this up. But in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, in 2009, we were down there on a family outing. And Diane, you're going to love this stuff. But we were down there, and I woke up in the middle of the night, early in the morning, just come up out of bed, and the only thing that came to me was the Ark of the Covenant. That was it. I had no other clue, no other idea what was going on. And so I just kind of laid back down. Sherry rolled back over and says, "Would you lay down and go to sleep?" So it was one of those things to where I just laid back down, didn't think anything else of it. And then later on that day, we went to Dollywood, and we kind of figured out the Dollywood thing. You get in, you get out before the crowds come in, and it gets too hot. So we hurried up and got out of there. And we ended up in the area in Pigeon Forge called the Old Mill. If you've been to Pigeon Forge and you've been to the Old Mill area, you know what I'm talking about. Behind it, there's a shopping center. And in the shopping center, there's this, there's a jeweler right inside this corner. And right next to him is a guy by the name of Spencer Williams, and he's a very well-known painter in the area. And he happened to be in the window painting a painting at the time. So I walked in, and I had bought a print off of him before, and I walked in, and he was actually working in the window, and I stood there and talked to him a few minutes. He plays a Roman guard in a passion play in the Smoky Mountains. And while we were talking, this woman walks over who works there, and she said, "Excuse me, sir," she said, "I have what I think you came in here to take a look at." And I thought, no, this is a great sales line. Here we go. So I walked to the back with her, and we walked to the back of the room, and there's a wall. And on this wall, she said, "This is what you came in here today for, wasn't it?" And there's this huge painting that Spencer had done. And the painting it had Jesus' face up in the left-hand corner. In the front of it was the Lion of Judah, with the crown on its head and the scrolls laying in front of it of the scripture, and then right behind that was the Ark of the Covenant. And I thought that was just kind of a coincidence. And I kind of threw it off a little bit. As a matter of fact, when we went back later on in the year, I had to have the print of that. And that is the print right there of the big painting, as you can see, with the Ark of the Covenant right prominently in the page. Well, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I said, okay, whatever, we're going to head out. And Sherry was ready to go, so we headed out and went to Gatlinburg, went up to 321 to the Craftsman area, up the mountainside. So we got up to the mountainside, and she was looking for those purses, and I went off being the good husband, and I was looking for something for her, okay? And so I went into this jewelry type shop that was this little store. Now, I had initially went in for a replacement of a necklace that I had and looking for something to replace that with. And I get into this shop, and this woman comes up to me, and she says, "How are you today, sir?" And I said, "I'm good." She goes, "Well, I think I have what you're looking for back here." So I walked back with her, and this is just a few hours, all this separated each other. And she walks back, and she shows me this necklace, and I said, no, not necessarily. I'm looking for something for my wife. And I said, "I don't think she'll like that." And she goes, "No, this is why you came in here today." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And she says, in the book of Numbers, chapter 10, God called down to Moses to build 2 trumpets out of hammered silver. And those 2 trumpets were to call the people to the tabernacle when God came down in the Ark of the Covenant and had something to say. And I said, "Oh, here's the Ark of the Covenant again." So it kind of freaked me out again. I said, no, really, I'm not looking for that. She goes, no, sir, listen, this is why you came in here. So she walked over and she put it around my neck. And she goes, you have a great, blessed day in the Smoky Mountains. And I was like, okay. So I walked out the door. I told Sherry, I said, we got to go. We got to go. The kids, I think, were all looking in a statue yard or somewhere, or magic shop or something. We just got to go. So we headed down to Gatlinburg. It started to get a little dark at that time. The humidity was going down. And we're walking down the strip in Gatlinburg. And as you know, there's a place there called Adventure Golf, if you've ever been there. Of course, we start walking up on it. It starts to blast out the Indiana Jones theme. And the guy reaches out and he goes, I can't help you with the Ark of the Covenant, but I can help you with the game of golf. And I'm thinking, did I just hear that? And we started walking a little faster. And it was weird because why in the world would this guy say this, or did he even say it? Was it just me hearing it? And I think Sherry may have said something to me about, why are we walking so fast? Nothing, it's just one of those things. So that ended kind of a day of weirdness in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Never understood what was going on. Well, what happened from there is for the next several months I started working on studying the Ark of the Covenant. Thought I knew all about it until I really got into it. I started looking at the scriptures, reading about history of it. Just trying to get into the Ark of the Covenant. I prayed about some guys to help build an Ark of the Covenant, this one right here. And then we were on an outing to the Creation Museum, the Bethlehem Nights that they have, or Christmas Town now. And we were there, and on the way back, we stopped to eat at IHOP, and somebody said, hey, you're into this archaeological stuff about the Bible. Because in the last 75 years, there have been more artifacts or sites found that go with the Bible and prove the Bible than any other time in history, which tells us that God is trying to show us something, or something to come, possibly. So they said, you're into this so much, why don't we do a study on that? So I went out and started seeking DVDs and things like that as part of the study. Well, one of them I remember from the History Channel was one called Mountain of Fire, where they discovered the real Mount Sinai. So I got on the internet, found the place where you ordered that from. I called, and the explorer that was in the DVD that found Mount Sinai answered the phone. And he says, I'm leaving. I found the shipwreck of the Apostle Paul. I found all the anchors in Malta, and I'm on my way to go film a documentary tomorrow. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll just send you the DVD, and we're done with it. Okay? So we hung up the phone. Now that was in December, 1st of December. And I didn't talk to him again. That was a 2-3 minute conversation, and we hung up the phone. We started our study on all the artifacts. We built the Ark of the Covenant, and 3 days prior to us finishing the Ark of the Covenant, Sherry and I were together, and she leans over to me and she says, you know what, I think our greatest adventures are still to come. Well, 3 days later, which was a couple days before my birthday, we met and we finished the Ark of the Covenant. And by the way, these are the angels from the Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. The guy that did them for them recasted them and sent them to us. So these are the recast of those exact angels that were used in the movie. So the day before, we just finished the Ark, boom, I get a phone call from Bob Cornuke. And he called back, and we're going to get to him here in just a minute as we go on farther. But Bob calls. He had just gotten back from the expedition and the filming, which is now out, by the way. It's now on DVD, of his finding of the shipwreck of Paul. And he says, Jim, he says, I know we don't know each other very well. He says, but while I was in Malta, I couldn't get your name off my heart. And he says, I believe you're supposed to be on an expedition with us to find the Ark, or on the trail of the Lost Ark of the Covenant. I'm thinking, here we go. This whole thing, we're in a week of the Ark of the Covenant. I'm thinking I'm preaching a message on Sunday about the Ark of the Covenant, and boom, here's all this stuff that takes place. Bob Cornuke has discovered the true Mount Sinai. He's really just an amazing guy. He is credited with finding the anchors of the shipwreck of Paul. He got his start by being asked to go on the expedition for Noah's Ark by the 8th man to walk on the moon, Jim Irwin. And he was also involved in several other things as well, and he appears on all kinds of different channels. And this guy is world famous. He's on a Trivial Pursuit question, finding the actual Mount Sinai. So we get a phone call, and Bob invites me on this expedition. And it was just amazing how it all worked out. That's Bob Cornuke got there, the guy in the middle, the good-looking one, that's me. And this here's the monk. This is a monk which you'll find all over Ethiopia. If you'll notice, this is a cave system that leads down into a chamber where a system of churches are. And I'd always like to show this because you'll notice he's very bulked out here. And the reason is all these monks are called guardian monks, not the guardian that we're going to talk about in a little while. The guardian monks are the ones who guard the actual, what they call the Holy of Holies in a series of churches throughout Ethiopia. The Holy of Holies all contain a replica of the Ark of the Covenant, not quite extravagant like this, but a replica. They look at the replica just as holy as the Ark of the Covenant, and they guard it with their life. So this right here that's bulged out is probably a submachine gun, because they literally guard the Holy of Holies in every one of the churches. So, this past January, we hopped on a plane and headed to Ethiopia. We flew into Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which is the capital city. Has a huge Russian influence to it. You'll even see a red square, just like in Moscow, in the city. We then flew out to Lalibela, which is where the series of churches are. Then to Axum, which is also spelled A-X-U-M, which is the modern-day spelling. We flew back to Lalibela, back into Addis, and back over to Lalibela again, and over to Gondar. And then took a long van ride to Barhadar, which is the bottom of this huge lake in Ethiopia. But we boarded a 777 jetliner at Dallas Airport in Washington, D.C. We headed over with our entire ARC team. Those of you have seen this before, but I still am looking at this. This is scaffolding in Ethiopia. They break off branches, strip them, tie them together with ropes, and and they throw rocks on it for extra traction, and that's what they build up right along top the skyscrapers that they have, what they call skyscrapers. And I always like to tell you, notice how the building is curved. Nothing's quite straight, and it's because of their building style, I'm sure. So it's kind of a cool picture to see. The food there is not great. Those will be attending with us on this trip, including John and Lisa, and Brad and Jenny. They eat, this is made of the teff seed. I thought it was a cow's stomach when we first saw it. It's anjira bread. Everybody eats this in Ethiopia. Everybody eats it except for me. I could not eat it. You ate camel. There's eyeballs available if you want to eat eyeballs. They have a little bit of everything. Everything you ask them what it is, if it's a meat, they tell you it's chicken, when obviously that is not chicken. And that's just the way they are. Nothing has a taste. The food is horrible, and it's just bad. It's bad food. But they're very proud of what they do. When we arrived in Axum, Ethiopia, it's like we stepped back in time 2,000 years. I'm not kidding you. It was like something out of an Indiana Jones movie where you just went back in time. Matter of fact, there was camels, a camel rider running his camel down alongside the runway when we landed, when we flew in. This is a market square area. The people here aren't looking for cash. What they do is they trade seeds and goods amongst each other. This is anjira right here, or a teff seed, which they make that bread out of. Most of these people all have the seed, and on the other side over here, they're selling like tin cans made into ladles and barley, because they make their own beer there, actually. A very weak form of beer. This young man, every time we saw him, had his brother on his back. And he would never accept anything from any of us until his brother got it first. And they just are a loving group of people. Very, very poor and very just torn people. We're going to go over that a little bit more later. This right here, by the way, that's Bob again. This is Tamara Scott. She's a TV talk show host. And this right here is what they call Ethiopian beef jerky. What they do is they cut off legs off of camels, lay them out in the sun to dry, and then pull it off and eat it. And we purchased all of those and handed those out to the crowd because the people are starving to death there. They don't have much. So they're very welcomed when we had an opportunity to share with them. Again, that's a street in Axum with the camels running. You see donkey carts. Very few cars. The cars are either three-wheeled taxis or vans bringing people in, or work trucks that take the people out of the area. This is a prayer shawl that Sherry's putting on. That's actually a prayer shawl right back there. This is our guide, Sisay. We had the opportunity to lead this young man to the Lord before we left Axum, Ethiopia, and he's going to be a key part to our ministry when we return there this year. But you'll notice all the women are putting on the prayer shawl. They're about ready to enter the area of the ark. You walk through a gateway area, which is surrounded by a stone gate, and just past here is the area of the ark. And once they get into that area, it's mandatory that the women are shrouded at that time. This is beyond that area. The women are not allowed past into this area here. This is the site of the original church of the Ark of the Covenant that the Ethiopians claim. The Muslims came in centuries ago, destroyed it. There's over 350 miles of tunnels underneath this area. One of them actually goes clear out to the Red Sea. And they can disappear into these tunnels at any time and be gone. And no one knows where they are. That's what happened when the Muslims came in. They lowered the ark with the guardian into that tunnel, and he was gone for years until a new church was erected, and then he came back up into that church and put the ark there. This right here, at one point in history, Ethiopia rivaled the Romans. Okay? So you have to understand, they were a powerful nation. If you read the scriptures in the Bible, you'll notice they were a powerful nation. At one point, Ethiopia's center of power was in Axum. Now, this right here is the actual throne that most of the mighty kings of Ethiopia received their crown on. I wasn't getting a crown that day. I found that out real quick, and I'm surprised they even let us sit on that. We bought a lot of food for people while we were there, because once you see people dying right in front of you, you start to realize you need to help them. So this was one of the sheep that we bought. 30 minutes later, that's what it looked like. They don't waste any time, and this went to an orphanage. Matter of fact, they cut the head off and threw it out for the cats outside. So we walked up, and there's a head laying there on the ground, and we realized what that head was from. It was from the sheep that we gave them earlier in the day. You heard about the fabled huts of Africa? They're true, and they still are there today. They're made out of thatch, mud, rocks, and manure. Inside, their seats and everything are made out of manure and mud, and they're very proud of what they have. If you are invited into their hut, it's an honor, and you take it as an honor to be invited in, and they love to allow you to be a part of that. This man right here, well, let's put it to you this way. Bob Cornuke's been working on the Ark of the Covenant for years. 1 year prior to us going, his caravan was coming through this desert. They saw people burying a man shrouded, wrapped in a shroud, had him lowered in the ground. When he stopped his caravan, he got out and asked them to pull the man back out so they could pray for the family. When they started praying for the family, he asked if they unshroud the man. They unshrouded him. When they did, his eyes opened up. And this is the man 1 year later, when he's seen our caravan come over the hill. He came out of nowhere running in tears to see Bob Cornuke, and they were standing there together in tears. This man that he would have been dead, without a question. This here is in Lalibela. In Lalibela, King Lalibela created or carved out these 11 monolithic, beautiful churches out of the top of a mountain. No one's ever been able to figure out how this happened, how he did it. He claims it was done by angels. But what I took this picture for is to show you this is a window in one of those churches. You'll see this symbol everywhere. And the reason is, this is what they claim the Ten Commandments look like, not like we see from the movie with Charlton Heston. Okay? This is what they claim they look like. And they say because they are so holy that they would have to stick poles underneath here to lift them out of the Ark of the Covenant so they could not touch it. And it makes perfect sense. If the Ark is holy, then God's Word of the Ten Commandments is just as holy. This here is on top of the mountain. King Lalibela was in Jerusalem. He was actually exiled there, and when he came back over and took over his throne in Roha, which it was later named Lalibela, named after him, he brought back the olive trees from Jerusalem. That's what these are. He recreated Jerusalem there because he felt the Ark of the Covenant would be there one day. This is on top of that mountain. This is one of the churches that he carved out. One of the churches is actually bigger than this building. It's huge, tall ceilings and big columns cut completely out of pink granite. This is the church from the top. Remember the picture I showed you with the monk, the guardian monk? You enter through this cave system here. You get down, you make a choice which way you're going to go. You go to the right way, you come out of the cave into this moat, and that's the church. that you're looking at from the top. It's shaped like a cross. It's the church, they call him St. George, the church that is believed to have supposedly housed the Ark of the Covenant, but never did. And by the way, look at the pink granite. Isn't it beautiful? They just cut that out of a mountainside. And there's 11 of these churches. And this here, which I get to share with you for the first time tonight, completely. Not completely, it's a whole different seminar. But, because I got it over here. But we are in production of the book now, so I'm allowed to talk about it. While we were in Ethiopia, and everybody that was on our team has been waiting for this book to come out. I was shown something with our team that no one has been allowed to see in 1900 years, written by one of the apostles. And it was something given to one of the apostles by Mary, Jesus' mother herself, giving a story about Jesus as a boy, which are lost years of the Bible. And we've been able to research this and found that the entire trail leads right to the place we were at. And it was a heavenly summit, I'll give it to you this way, a heavenly summit between Jesus, the boy, and his Father, God. And it happened at the Ark of the Covenant. And we were the first ones in 2,000 years almost to be shown this, and we'll have a book coming out before Christmas that'll detail the entire story from the start in Bethlehem to the time they met to this day right here. So, in Axum, or Bar Madar, Ethiopia, Lake Tana, it's 65 miles to the north, wide, or tall, and then 45 miles wide. They still use the reed boats, the grass boats, just like they did 2,000 years ago. They still fish in those, and I don't know how they stay afloat, but they do. There's another example of them. This is a very small one. This little boy right here, really wasn't a little boy, but they don't wear many clothes there. This boy has no clothes on. And they just have a good time. He's fishing. This is a grass mat. They weave them so tight together they float. And then these are two inhabitants just off the back side of where the boy on the mat was. These are 6,000-pound hippopotamuses. Okay? Now I need to share this with you. These animals kill more people in Ethiopia or in Africa than any crocodile, any snake. They'll capsize a good-sized 25, 30-foot boat in an instant. They'll come right up through the bottom. They're very territorial. So, and actually when they open their mouths, you can almost squat down and walk in them. That's how big they are. And they're vegetarians, but they do not like anyone in their territory, and they will kill in order to keep you away from them. And then this is over near where we stayed when we came back in on one day. These people come here in the morning, they come here in the evening, and they come to this place. Some strip off their clothes, go into the water, and take their baths. Others come down here and wash their clothes. And this is how they do it in Ethiopia. They don't have the Maytags and all this stuff to take care of things. They do it the primitive way. Anyhow, getting to where we were at. The Ark of the Covenant, Indiana Jones films. If you guys, I know you guys have seen them. We just talked about it. But Raiders of the Lost Ark started a phenomenon. People just had to know about the Ark of the Covenant. And it started a whole bunch of theories throughout the time that they've talked about it. But the Ark of the Covenant itself is one absolutely incredible artifact. It was the presence of God on this earth. It was ordered to Moses by God to build the 10 Commandments, to house the 10 Commandments in. Now, as we go into this, if you have a question, please stop me. But it was made of acacia wood. That's the flat tree you always see on television when there was a show, the Serengeti and all that. This is the flat tree that was there. Now, it was made, this part of the ark was made of the acacia tree, okay? Now, you need to understand this. Just this part was made of the tree. Then, if you'll remember in the scriptures in the book of Exodus, they made the molten calf that they idolized while Moses was up on the mountain. If you've seen the 10 Commandments movie with Charlton Heston, they made the calf and all that. They actually ended up melting that down, and they used that gold to cover this part of the ark. So it was actually made of acacia wood and covered in pure gold. The top of the ark, which is this piece right here, was not made of acacia wood. It was made of solid, pure gold. And there's a reason behind that. And it's called the mercy seat for a reason. That's a slab of gold hammered out to form this shape. Now, it had on top of it 2 cherubim angels. The angels' wings were folded in, and they were searching and watching and guarding this piece right here. This right here is called the mercy seat. This was actually the only place since the Garden of Eden that God ever came to earth on. He came here and he dwelled right there 1 day a year. Now, that 1 day a year was called the Day of Atonement. But the ark itself carried great power to it. It brought down and parted rivers, part of the River Jordan. It brought down the walls of Jericho, and it also defeated armies. It was God on this earth. And no one could look at it. No one could touch it. Anytime it ever moved, and I keep telling everybody, I got to change this slide, this can't be right, because they could not look at the Ark of the Covenant, so anywhere it went, it was covered. It had to be completely covered, because just looking at it would kill you. Okay? So that was the power of God on this earth, and it dwelled within the ark. The 10 Commandments were also stored in the Ark of the Covenant. God's presence dwelt in the ark, and it was also carried by the Levitical priest. Only the Levite Hebrew priest could carry the Ark of the Covenant. It would be carried, I don't know if you guys can see, but it would be carried on their inside shoulder like this by 4 priests, decked in their Levitical gowns, very ceremonial. Then it was put in a tabernacle, a tent that they would take around in the desert that they made, very specific. It had 2 chambers to it. The first chamber was where the priest would enter and prepare himself. The second chamber was the Holy of Holies. This is the chambers right here. There's 7 pieces of furniture that was included in this, except in the Holy of Holies, and only the Ark of the Covenant was in that room. The priest would understand and know that this is God's throne. This is where God dwelt. God created this throne, told them how to make it, what it was to look like. In the book of Revelation we read, or excuse me, in the book of Matthew we read about the Lord's Prayer, and it says, "Kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So very specific things God told us to do were replicated from his place in heaven. And there's a reason behind that, which we'll get to that in a little while. But the priest himself would go in, first of all, he would completely strip down in the tabernacle area. He would wash himself completely. He would pray for forgiveness of any sin that he possibly could have. Then he would put his ceremonial gowns on. They had bells sewn into the hem of the garment. They would tie a rope to him, and he would go into the Holy of Holies with prayers. Now, if the priest for any reason carried any sin into that room whatsoever, God would strike him dead on the spot. If they didn't hear the bells anymore, they'd pull the rope and drag him out, in which they would already had another priest picked to take that place. Moses' brother Aaron became the first high priest. Now, get back up here. Remember this right here as we go along. This is not accurate either, and this has always been done like this. These are the 12 stones of the 12 tribes of Israel. This would have been super heavy because this was also on a plate of gold, which it was harnessed to something. So it would not just hang on the guy's neck, it'd be like this. It was actually part of a harness. And I'll show you more about that in a little while. But one day, the Ark of the Covenant, yes?
Can we take a break for just a few minutes?
Go for it.
Thank you.
I'll kind of